Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Laine and welcome to the psychology portion of this course. Now, if you're completely new to trading, a lot of what I'm going to say will not fully be comprehended until you go through your matriculation process as a trader. But please understand and know full-fledged that psychology is literally the most important part of trading. So again, if you're new, these words might not resonate with you right now, but please understand that if you stick with this process, you will definitely remember these words during your journey. There was literally a study that was done that said that trading is one of the most psychological adverse conditions that you can expose yourself to. So something happens when you become a trader and you shift all of your knowledge that you have and have learned into actually executing with real money. And when this happens, depending on your thought process about money, you can be controlled by one of two things: fear or greed. I'm going to go over both in the section of this course. However, it's very important that you identify the type of person that you are, because how you perceive information, how you think about money, whether it be your frame of reference from your childhood, from your environment, your daily habits, ultimately all of this will either make or break you as a trader. Your discipline, which I will also go over in this portion of this course, will be the fundamental basis that predicates your success. So let me first start off by saying that the market is neutral. It generates information based off of previous data and moves accordingly, and your ability to gather this data and systematically put it together will be the differentiation between you winning or losing money. When I emphasize that the market is neutral, the market does not know you. It does not know anything about you or any other trader for that matter. And sometimes when people lose money, they think the market is against them and that there's some fairy tale manipulation, whether it be good or bad, associated with the reason as to why they lost. The market is always right. It's our ability to see and gather data that's being presented to us, whether it will make us right or whether it will make us wrong. The market provides an opportunity that is endless for people to make money. So it does not have any power over the unique way in which we as individuals perceive information or control the decisions that we make. Now, the best traders think differently from the rest. They have literally mastered their mindsets, which allow them to remain disciplined and focused and above all confident in any situation. Your mentality in trading is everything. People that are extremely successful in this world, there is a reason that some are successful and some are not, right? Just equate it to real life. So many people are successful on one end and some are not. And really it's just our discipline and our work ethic that differentiates the two. So I hope you guys were able to gather a little bit from this intro, but next I'm going to be going over fear and greed. Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Laine and welcome to the fear portion of this course. As I mentioned in the first part of this module, there are two problems that plague you in the market: greed and fear. And when it comes to fear, there are four main fears: the fear of being wrong, the fear of losing money, the fear of missing out, and the fear of leaving money on the table. Now, most traders at some point suffer from not one, if not all of these fears. The problem with fear is that when you are fearful, no other possibilities exist. You can literally have a trade right in front of your face with every confirmation in the book for you to execute. But because you are fearful, you are blinded of this opportunity because fear is immobilizing. Another problem with fear is that when one hones on that fear, what we are actually fearful of ends up happening. As with anything in life, what we focus on grows. So whatever problem is being presented in that particular moment, we end up allowing that to happen. So if you are afraid of being wrong or losing money, no matter how much you learn about technical analysis, you will always lose money because you will not be able to deal with the negative effects that your fears have on your ability to make a decision. So unless you are able to master your mind, you will either consciously or subconsciously subject yourself to errors unless you learn control. Now, the question boils down to, can you trust yourself? Right? Because at one point you have to be able to depend on yourself if the market is fluctuating up or down. And whatever set analysis you have, your ability to stay in the trade depends on you. So again, the question lies, can you control yourself? And I want you to write that down in all caps. Can I trust myself? Because unless you train your mind to override every negative thought that's contrary to your success, you will not be able to succeed. And once you're able to do this, then you will completely let go of every habitual process that will cause you to hesitate, that will cause you to not execute a position. And it will ultimately be able to put you in a position where all of the trades will go in your favor because you now know how to think about them. So remember, we have to conquer our fears. Hey everyone, Jessica Laine here, and welcome back. Now we're going to be going over greed. We already talked about it being a big problem in psychology, but now I'm going to elaborate. Greed is literally the opposite of fear. Whereas some people are just too scared to execute their trades, you have some that are way too overconfident. They stay in positions for extensive amounts of time. They over leverage. They have too many positions on their account, and they do not manage their money. Have you ever heard the saying, pigs get slaughtered? Well, it's literally a saying on Wall Street that refers to the habit of staying in winning trades way too long. They stay in thinking, I'm in profit, let me just get a little more. And sooner or later, the trend reverses and the greedy get caught. Or you have some that say, I'm doing good today. Let me hop in another trade, knowing that they've already reached their goal for today and made a good amount of money. And the next thing you know, they lose everything. So let's face it. We all know you can make an endless amount of money in the market. However, most people who deal with greed try to make it so much money that it becomes unhealthy and extremely dangerous, especially when it becomes excessive. Greed is literally the most dangerous emotions that a trader can have, even worse than fear, because fear can paralyze you from trading. If you've ever heard the term analysis paralysis, this is where it comes from. The reason that greed is worse is because when you are trading and you are fearful, you don't have to worry about losing all your money because you literally are too scared to hop in a trade. However, when you're greedy, you can lose it all. It pushes you to act in a way in which you shouldn't. You over leverage, you over trade, you chase the market, you hold on to positions that you shouldn't, you hold on to positions that you should have exited a long time ago. Like greed is very, very similar to a drug. Drugs make you act foolish, and when you have too much, it causes you to cloud your judgment, and really it just boils down to ego, and egos must be tamed. So no matter what, whether you are dealing with fear or greed, both of them have to be controlled, and the way to do this is by a trading plan. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this module. However, I hope you guys were able to learn a lot from this, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone, Jessica Laine here, and welcome to the discipline portion of the psychology module. I'm super excited because, as I've already emphasized, discipline is so important when it comes to your trading. Now, we already talked about the two main problems in trading, which is, greed and fear. However, as I mentioned earlier, discipline is everything. So the first step to becoming a successful trader is identifying who you are. I was listening to a seminar on trading once, and it talked about how trading is unlimited possibilities coupled with unlimited freedom to take advantage of those possibilities, but presents individuals with a unique and specialized psychological challenge, a challenge that very few people are aware of. And you can't exactly work on something if you don't know it's a problem. So again, I'm going to kind of equate this to real life, because ultimately I feel as though that's the best way to break down the discipline portion of this course. If you don't know that a certain problem is a problem, you're not going to know how to fix that problem. However, once it's in your awareness, you can set forth the necessary step to overcoming them. So you literally have to ask yourself in your everyday to-day life, who are you? How do you handle adversity? When something doesn't go in your way, how do you react? Are you a patient person? Are you a disciplined person? You really have to think deep about these things because all of them will affect you in your trading. So let's take patience, for instance. If you go to a restaurant and there's a significant wait, will you wait? Or will you go to another place? If you're at a red light and let's say a car is in front of you and the light turns green, will you honk the horn or will you be patient and allow life to move and flow? When it comes to discipline, are you physically fit? A lot of people say that, they want to lose weight, but go to eat McDonald's the next day. A lot of people say that they want to be physically fit, but then they eat fried chicken. If somebody told you that you could not eat anything containing sugar, or you only had to drink water for a month, would you be able to do it? And while these may seem like minor things, they're very applicable to trading, because the only way to operate in an efficient space is to set boundaries to guide our behavior. So if somebody told you that, you had to work out every single day, would you be able to do it? Because ultimately it's called mental discipline. And mental discipline is paramount to becoming a successful trader. Anything can happen in the market. So you have to have a set rule and structure that is in front of your face, so that you have a guideline to act in your own interest when the market is having all of these things happen. Okay. So I really want you guys to take heed to all of the information that I just presented, because ultimately monitoring, what we do on an everyday life is going to help us down the road. And in trading, it's the ability to have a trading plan and set forth rules to guide and monitor your actions that will prohibit you from losing money. Any factor of numbers can come into play when you're in the market. As I've already mentioned, you can become distracted, causing you to have the ability to change your mind, causing you to have the ability to become scared or overconfident. And all of these things will cause you to behave in erratic and unintended behavior unless you have a framework and a structure right in front of your face to protect your best interest. So again, remember, discipline is the most important part of trading, and I will see you guys in the next video. Hi everyone, Jessica Laine again, and welcome to the final portion of the psychology section. Actually, it's the best part of this section because we've already identified various problems, but now we're going to be going over the solution. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of having a trading plan. As I've already mentioned in the discipline part of this module, it's the ability of having a trading plan and a set forth number of rules to guide you and monitor your actions that will prohibit you from losing money. Any factor of numbers can come into play when you're in the market, causing you to behave irrationally. And unless you have a structure and a framework that's there to guide you and protect your best interests, you might lose. So how do we go about doing this? First off, before you decide to take a trade, you have to have a set number of confirmations before getting into that position. These are called confluences. Confluences give you multiple variables that add up to confirm the solution to the problem that is right in front of your face. Next, you must know before you take a position how much money is going to cost you if it does not work out. This deals with your money management. What is your risk to reward? What is your winning threshold? Ultimately, how much money will you make when the trade goes into your direction? And how much money will you potentially lose if all else fails? How many pips do you plan to stay in your position? If the trade goes in drawdown, how far will you allow it to go? What are your rules and parameters that are based off of this decision? Lastly, what is your plan for taking profits? What does it look like? How are you going to execute it? Is it based off of pip range, or is it based off of structure? And depending on the type of trader that you become, only you can determine this. However, again, we're all different. How much money we want from the market's different. Our goals are different. Our psychology is different. So ultimately, only you can set forth these parameters. However, you should definitely have an answer to every single question that I just asked you, and it should be a part of your trading plan. Next, the rules are extremely simple. After you come up with your system, you have to stick with it, okay? You designed it. Now, no matter what sporadic behavior occurs in the market, you have to stick with it. You cannot deviate. You cannot be influenced by any other extraneous factors or variables that will literally cause the market to shift, okay? Once you have done this over a period of time, there will be no fear. There will be no resistance. But the problem boils down again to discipline. Okay, our human psychology to deliver on what needs to be done and how it needs to be done continuously, whether we feel like it or not. And when we say it aloud, what could actually stop or hinder us from doing exactly what we need to do, when we need to do it without reservation or hesitation, it sounds simple and we will easily say nothing. However, we lie to ourselves. You know, this will create a paradox and a complex struggle between our desire to think objectively and execute, and all of the forces inside of us that conflict with this desire. You will literally find yourself in a couple attempts to do this, and it will actually seem impossible, but you have to push through. If need be, execute all of the trades with a small lot size that does not scare you until the consistency is there. Because personally, I don't necessarily suggest demo accounts, because while doing this, some people don't treat their demo account like they treat their real account. However, if you're disciplined enough to treat both accounts the same with the same emotion, then go for it. You know, if you have any trouble, you have to monitor yourself and use different techniques and self-discipline techniques to refocus on your objective. You know, write down all of your confirmations before executing a trade, all of your affirmations, literally keep them beside you at all times while you're trading. Repeat them to yourself frequently and with conviction. And every time you notice that you are not in the right mindset, or if you're inconsistent with these principles, acknowledge the conflict. Identify what is wrong. If you're scared, acknowledge it and face your fears of being wrong or losing money or missing out. Literally make sure you face those fears, and then you'll know exactly what you need to do. Follow the rules of your trading regimen as best as you can. Don't try to deny the existence of conflicting forces. Literally, they're simply just parts of your psyche that is arguing for their versions of the truth. But you have to know exactly how to refocus on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And once you're able to do this consistently, it's like going to the gym and building a new muscle. Your new psychology will become so powerful that it will take no effort in trying to execute it, because now it becomes a part of you. So you've now trained your subconscious brain, and welcome to becoming a master trader. I'm Jessica Laine, and that was the psychology portion of this course.